they're support in all but name. They're not really support. They're really more of a kind of a judge or a stamp, rubber stamper, and that it's kind of up to us to get all the paperwork in order.
Hello and welcome to another Google Business Buzz. Guys, we're in for a treat. We've got the man himself, the leader of our Google Business Profile team. He manages a team of 10 people that work directly on this platform, the GBP, and we're going to talk all about Google Business Profile. Kirby, welcome to the pod.
Thanks, Henry. Thanks for having me. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Hey, hilarious. So we wanted to get you on here, man. We're seeing a lot of businesses in trouble with suspensions, with things going out of control on their GBPs, on their Google Business Profiles. We see it on the forums, in Facebook. We see it all over the place. And, we're getting a lot of clients that come in like this with a suspended GBP. Why do you think Google is cracking down on profiles and suspending a lot of them?
Ooh, loaded question. It kind of depends, right? Are they cracking down, or are they doing their mad scientist routine a little bit there, right? We know Google loves data, and we know they also love a clean data set, right? So they really want they want users to be able to hop on Google and have a very streamlined, confident, trustworthy interaction, and they're always looking for ways to guarantee that, at least from their point of view. And how they do that is adjust their suspension mechanics, adjust their guidelines to find out what is the sweet spot, right, between businesses that are following the rules so that they're not dealing with Google, right, and profiles that have less good intentions that they can be safely removed from the SERP, right? So it's Google trying to find that careful balance, which doesn't always feel balanced, but we do our best to kind of level that playing field when they do make those changes for the most part.
No, for sure. And I don't feel like it's really too balanced, right? When we helped so many businesses that are legit. They're legitimate businesses. They've been on Google for years. They have legitimate reviews, and then suddenly they're down, right? And then on their own, these business owners have tried to go through support, and that's little to no success. If you don't understand what you're doing, and you don't understand what documents you have to give to the support people, then it's going to take forever and probably won't get resolved. Like, that's why I think we've been doing such good work, because we have other avenues, and we know exactly what the business owner needs to give us so that we can give to Google support. But why do you think that is? Like, why is support not helping all of these business owners that don't have marketing agencies that have their back?
It's a good question. There's probably two clean answers, but I think a simpler answer is just sort of a time investment, right? When you really get down into it, like Google is dealing with hundreds of thousands of these submissions. I don't want to say billions. I'm sure it touches millions right after a year is out, right, when they're dealing with it. But when Google is dealing with this many requests, it needs to be as smooth and as frictionless as possible for them to be able to receive them all. But that doesn't result in the eyes they want looking on it. So what that means is you need a lot of times a company like us who can dedicate those eyes and that time and guide it ahead of time. Because that's really what we do at the end of the day, is we anticipate what Google will do before they do it, because they're not terribly clear. They're support in all but name. They're not really support. They're really more of a kind of a judge or a stamp, rubber stamper, and that it's kind of up to us to get all the paperwork in order ahead of time so that it passes cleanly through that pipeline and results in a live profile at the end of it. So it's kind of knowing it before you need to know it is really where we come in, I think.
Awesome. Absolutely. And then even after the reinstatement, they force business owners to do that video verification So it's really complicated nowadays to make sure your Google Business Profile is up and running. Um, what do you think is the main like pain point for businesses when when their GBP goes down? What is the biggest challenge for them to overcome?
I think the biggest challenge is separating their knowledge level of their own business, right, with Google's knowledge level of the business. I think that's always difficult. Business owners obviously are very prideful. They're very proud of what they've built and what they're showing, and they're very confident, right? They're doing this for years and years. They don't think they need to show Google as much, right? They're like, hey, I have this great community reputation. I have all these reviews. I've been working around here for a decade or more. But Google doesn't know that the way that you know that, right? And it's translating that knowledge, confidence, and that information to Google in a way that they can read. It's kind of like changing the language almost, right? It's like getting a translator in between, and we're kind of the translator in between what they have, what they know they are as a business, and making sure Google is aware of that and reading it the same way, because that is always the problem. Sometimes documents will be out of date, right? And it's like, well, I haven't needed to updated them yet. And it's like now, unfortunately, is when you do need to update them because Google's checking things like dates, right? And there's also things where a lot of times they'll have, like, say, their phone number in their name, and they didn't think of a necessity, right, to make that a business line and complicate that further. But Google's really looking for hard proofs, and it could feel rich to say this, but you should try to think of it as an opportunity, because every step that they take to make it harder for you, a legitimate business, to get on the GBP, it makes it triply hard for a business that has no business being on GBP, trying to siphon customers or clicks and calls and scams away to get on there, right? If there's this difficulty barrier for just earnest businesses getting on there, it's very, very hard for spam businesses to get on. And we found that to be the case. We do spam fighting to stop that as well. So it's really just taking a step back, getting all the information you know you have or can get, and just being willing to find a weak spot, I guess, in your documentation or your presentation of a business, and be able to change that up to provide that for Google, specifically what they're asking as opposed to what you might want them to ask for, which is oftentimes very different when it comes to Google.
Right, right. You went right to where I was thinking about asking you. The spam fighting, right? So do we still see a lot of businesses that are illegitimate trying to, play on the keyword stuffing or using UPS stores as their addresses, things like that?
They're out there, right? Because there's just so many local areas that Google doesn't have time to sit there and stare at themselves. But I see less and less every year. And I have to assume that's because of us going on patrol out there and kind of reporting the ones that we know are against guidelines. And I'm sure Google's algorithm has slowly wisened up over time. They've certainly gotten more aggressive, so I don't see any reason to think they haven't captured some in that same interim. But yeah, I've noticed fewer. There used to be some verticals you'd open up and it seemed to be like 50-50 between real businesses and fake businesses. And I don't feel like that's the case anymore for a lot of those. I'm not going to call them problem industries, but just areas where Google, I guess, maybe had less proof at one time or another, right? Or simply was something that attracted the people trying to get on GBP for the wrong reasons, right? They just felt like this is the area I should be in. Maybe the lower burden of proof. But
Locksmith.
yeah, I've noted less. Yeah.
Locksmith.
Yeah. Yeah. Google's favorite. Google's favorite.
Right. So that's really interesting. I remembered that earlier this year they published how many fake reviews and edits that they were able to
Yeah.
to make and remove fake listings. So in 2024 they apparently removed 12 million fake listings, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder
Yeah.
how many of those weren't actually fake. That's something that does end up hurting real business owners that depend on their GBPs. Yikes. So it's actually a good thing, like you said, that they're doing this and we're seeing the effects with less spam fighting that we have to do. So
Yeah.
that's pretty
Definitely.
awesome. That's really good news. And what about like fake reviews? They're talking about they removed 240 million fake reviews they
Yeah.
blocked on Google Maps. Do you see that they're blocking fake reviews?
Yes and no. What I think it is I think Once it gets on a profile, if it was a fake review, it's a little bit harder. But getting it on there, I think, is pretty difficult. It seems like they've, in some degree, they have some, they have some mechanisms and some filterings in place where some, if a review they don't trust is left, it's not even going to get on the profile, which I understand is a constant concern for business owners, right? They want to get their views, they want people to know the quality of their work, right? The service, the communications, I mean, the relationships they fostered in communities, right? But Google, I think, has increased all of those barriers, and that's another one where it's not fun, but it's probably necessary, right? The barrier for entry to create an email and leave a review is very low, right? It really doesn't require all that much at all. So Google needs to err on that side, because the authority and the value of a review is completely eliminated if it's flooded with fake actors, right? Suddenly that score doesn't really mean all that much to you, right? So it's ultimately in the platform, in Google, in users' best interest that every fake review possible is removed. And Google does that in a variety of ways. They try to assess the quality of the users' interactions in the space already, right? If you're a first time reviewer, they're going to be a little interested, right? They're going to probably see the location of the review relative to the location of the activity. They're probably going to see the how many times you've logged in. They're probably going to assess if this is a new and active user or if this is somebody from somewhere else who's left 30 other reviews on businesses across the country. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If you're getting towed in 50 different states in a year, you're having probably the worst year ever. Google's going to be aware of that. So yeah, I think it's striking that balance, which is in a way it's just a microcosm of what they're trying to strike with the GBP, but on a much larger scale because we know it's hard to make a GBP. It's not hard to make a Google account. So that's kind of the balance they have to work on.
Right. So then what happens when they do identify a Google account that is leaving fake reviews or making malicious edits? And is that something that can affect, if they manage a GBP?
Oh yeah. If they manage a GBP, it's really bad news. If they don't, it's just bad news for that account. Google can, in the same way that a GBP can get suspended, your email can get suspended, right? It can be suspended. Google is basically asking you to prove that you're following the guidelines of their platform as specified. And if you're not going to get that email back. You're not going to be able to work on the activity of it. And then if that profile is managing GBPs, Google is just going to assume that if you're not following the guidelines here, you're likely not following the guidelines elsewhere. And they kind of want to just take that platform a step back and say, we need to remove your ability to add information to our platform. If because that's essentially what it is, right? The platform is an ability for you to convey information, and Google wants that information to be trusted. If you've proven yourself to be a bad actor who does not provide reliable or good information, they don't want you providing that information anywhere on the platform, whether it's an email, whether it's the GBP. So yeah, that normally results in a suspended GBP. All the reviews can be removed in a big block if Google feels needed, right? They could just, if you're not leaving, if they're suspending that profile, you're probably not going to get any reviews they've left are probably going to be taken with them, right? So they can kind of Thanos snap that all away if they feel they're justified in it.
Wow, that's really, concerning. If you're trying to do business the right way, but you're using your Google account the wrong way. So
Yeah.
business owners out there, please don't leave fake reviews. Don't do any malicious edits with a Google account, especially the one that's connected to the GBP. Um, but yeah, that you made another really good point about how much Google wants to trust the listings, right? And to deliver high quality results to their users. And we see that on other platforms as well, like ChatGPT, right? It's the biggest search engine that's come into play after Bing, after Google. But I mean, they're taking a lot of people their way. And what came out recently is that they're actually scraping, Google for results, for local results. So GBPs do appear on ChatGPT, and the reviews also appear on ChatGPT. Um, how important is that, do you think, Kirby, for the current situation, how search is right now, and how it's changing?
I mean, it's really important. It's just another layer, right, of this game of, I don't want to call it phone tag per se, but it's just sort of like this way that information is sifted through and pulled from. It's just another foundational block. And the lower you are on that block, right, the more important you are for all the upstream information sources. Um, a good example of that is your website, right? For a while that the website was kind of the only thing, right? Just your individual local websites bouncing between. Now every website's connected with each other with the links, right? They're always linked within other platforms, within other apps. The apps are then pulling from those websites and then shifting that data up a tier. Well, now websites are more essential than they've ever been as sort of a foundational piece of information below the next sort of feeder. And then now Google search results are kind of just maybe settling into that new area. I don't think anyone's gonna not use it, but everyone's gonna. A lot of people are gonna use AI search, and more people are gonna use AI search every single day. Um, so with GBP playing, Google's already proven that GBP is sort of a key physical component of that online search result space, right? They talk about it a lot. They say, hey, we want this business to represent how you're represented in the physical world, right? And what that means by that is something that it's not fungible. Like it's only presented one way. You're not going to have something wrong on your business sign that's out in front of your store, right? You're not going to have the wrong hours out front of the door of your store. If all that information is accurate, it's going to get subsumed into Google. And then likewise, Google is really going to incentivize that. And the more Google trusts that, right, the more they show it on their search results. And the more Google then trusts and shows it means it's more visible for GPT doing its scraping when it pulls up, right? So it's just sort of like an amplifying effect where the information you're leaving here is now just echoing down the line into a whole new user base if you're doing it right.
Absolutely. That gives me comfort, because everybody's talking about how Google search is going to end up going away. Even they've made adjustments to give their AI mode more of a feature presence, right? But everything is still being fed through Google Maps and GBP. So that gives me a lot of confidence in the future. And guys, like if you need help getting your GBPs reinstated or even starting a new business and want to talk to one of our reps, we can help. We've successfully reinstated many a profile here in the last 10 years that I've been at OMG. But with Kirby and his team on top of it, we've got a structured process that really has streamlined this issue for our clients. Kirby, do you want to speak a little bit on that, on like what we do that is different without giving away the
Yeah.
secrets?
Yeah, I mean, I could say pretty confidently that this is the most confident I've been in our support process in a long time because I feel like we actually have a large suite of options for anything Google throws at us, and that really is what it is. What is Google throwing at you? Can you pivot well? And I think we can pivot better than anybody. And that's taken time. That's taken a lot of effort from obviously all of my team, and you of course, and then just sort of finding what works, what doesn't, rolling with the punches when Google changes things, and being able to do that agilely, and then having a concrete plan in place. And I think that's what we do really well. Is that we do it how Google wants, right? We're always mindful of exactly what they're looking for, so that there's no miscommunications there, right? We start off right from the base of this is what Google wants. We're going to get them that. From that point, we have a lot of ways that we can pivot and make sure that we're able to get that information to Google wherever they can see it, right? And I think that's the difference is that we have a concrete process in place. We know what to do if something doesn't work, right? Which with Google is sort of a certainty. Something is not going to work maybe exactly how you want it to. Thankfully, we always have a plan B for when that doesn't happen, and we already know what we're going to do for that plan B before we've done plan A. And I think that helps a lot with result time, and I think that helps a lot with just general confidence and assertiveness when we're getting that across the finish line and finally do get a result GBP.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I mean, it's really a testament to the team's experience now. With the team is very experienced. That they work on over 3,000 Google Business profiles on a daily basis. So we know what we're doing, guys. And if you've gotten this far into the podcast, you're definitely interested in what we've got to say. So, give us a call, 800-789-4619. You can talk to one of our reps or visit our website. GBP is what we know. We're great at ads. We're great at meta ads. We're especially proficient at GBP. So, Kirby, thanks a lot for joining me on this episode, and hope to have you on again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Center.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on the trail.